Well, I think that is, we're live. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for turning up. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes, see who turns up. How are you, Dave, my friend? How's it going?
Good. Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. It's been a very busy week. I'm just going to find your link and repost it on mine. There we go. Yeah, busy week at work. And it obviously looks, I'm not at work this weekend, but it looks like it's going to be a very busy weekend for our colleagues out and about this weekend. I think the headline in the BBC was pints and haircuts. That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, go on. Because our haircut's in. Tell me that.
Apparently,
you look as though you desperately need one, mate.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, I had to get the razors out the other day. It's the same razors I use on the Spaniel, of course.
Mm.
Not really.
Well, there's no germs, is there? We were just talking with Arthur and all that. I was giving a bit of a cuddle sort of thing because with a small dog, it's like an excuse to just have a warm-blooded teddy bear everywhere. And Becky was saying, isn't it funny how you just don't think there's any germs on him?
It makes me laugh when we go to job because Pearlie's a spaniel. She lives outside. She loves muddy puddles, so she quite often stinks. And when you go somewhere, people are like, "Oh my God, she smells." And I'm like, "But actually, she thinks you smell."
It is true, isn't it? They just sat on the sofa, and then Arthur goes like that. I'm like, "What have you? What's the matter? Just open the door." He's probably smug.
Can you see who's on the wall?
Yeah, love it.
New picture of Finn, and of course, I'd never be forgiven if we don't actually show him.
Oh, good man.
There he is.
Where is he? Hello, Finn.
He's doing all that.
He's been getting through a few books recently, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a much better reader than I am, and he's just doing some research at the moment. So he's going to let me know what he finds out about the dog training world.
Good, mate. Yes, because you're starting a little bit of that, aren't you? Again.
What's up? Dog training? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the plug, Harry. Look at that.
That wasn't even arranged, was it? That was just straight in there.
Beautiful. Wow. So yeah, we did a couple of sessions yesterday, and the diary is getting nice and full now. And the dogs that we had with us yesterday absolutely loved every second, and they were exhausted at the end. And I'm led to believe that the owners had a nice quiet night. So if you want to do any dog training, give us a shout on a DM. We're based in Hertfordshire, but if you get enough people together, we can travel just about anywhere to do it. I'm going to do one more plug before I do the news, if that's all right.
Go on, mate. Do it.
Not for me. This came. I asked for this for Father's Day, and it came yesterday. So Theo is a retired police dog that belongs to a friend of mine called Gareth Greaves, who's a Manchester police dog handler. Theo, there, absolute hero, an amazing dog. This book made it into number 15 in the Sunday Times charts this week.
Wow!
And if you want another police dog story, this will get you. It's absolutely brilliant. He loves Theo and thinks as much of Theo as I do of Finn. So that's my little recommendation for you.
Well, I'd be really clear. Can I recommend something quickly? First of all, I've just finished our guest we had last week, Mandy Hickson. I've just finished this one, and absolutely love it. If you are, it doesn't have to any of the forces, anything, just human nature and getting through processes that are, interviews and stuff like that, getting through, and then flying tornadoes across Iraq and being shot at with missiles and all the troubles and tribulations with that. And brilliant. I would say it's not a man's book. It's not a girl's book. It is a man's and girls and kids, teenagers book, without a shadow of a doubt, that one. So well done, Mandy. It's done really, really well as well. And the other thing, I have got a mate who is called Mark Rothwell, and he is Devon and Cornwall Police, and he's basically wrote a book because he's quite clever he loves historical stuff, and anything the West Country is all about Devon and Cornwall. If you're in Devon and Cornwall, you're interested about history of policing. This is the book here, and it's policing the right. I'll show you how thick it is. That it is big. It's big. It's got 200 photographs in it, and one of the that's not a good example. Loads of photographs, real historical photograph. I mean, for me, this is an absolute gem because it's just lists how it was the Devon, it was the Cornwall, and it then went into Devon and Cornwall, how it did. But all the stories and the characters in there as well, including a fine figure of a man in there. All right, there we go. There he is.
I knew you'd have to be in there somewhere. I was going to ask if the whole book was about you.
Right, yeah. Oh, I can't. It's weird from right. Yeah, and do you know what he's written? Right, I've got to read what he says at the bottom.
How about you?
Yeah, PC 3908 Harry Tangy, which I was at the time, inspects the damaged ignition. I expected people to go, oh, what about Socko, Seeds of Cry, Forensics? That was a Socko man taking a photograph of that, and we were just wandering around, and we found that car, and he said, "Can you hold the ignition?" I said, "I bet you've never told a copper to do that before." 1997, that was. And arguably became one of the Force's first social media stars on the Twitter. Thank you very much. In the 2010s, there for prosperity. What an article! What a book, rather, for historical, and it's there forever.
Would anybody like to see if we can get Gareth on the show? Let me know. Obviously, I need to speak to Harry first.
That might be a good one.
Because Harry will get picked on by 2 dog handlers that day. If you'd like to know if we can get Harry on the show, then let me know and we'll see if we can arrange it. But David Walden has just pointed out that he thinks you're playing a game every week. Where's Harry's book?
I am. He's found it. Good on you, Dave. Good on you. Good on you, there, mate. It is there. It is there. Can you find it? There it is. There it is today. Thank you very much. I am playing a game. Can you see it there? It's got product placement. So eventually you'll just start thinking, oh, must buy. Must buy.
They call it subtle advertising, don't they? When you
a
burger and then you get hungry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's absolutely just yeah.
Yeah. Right.
News. Dun, 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 dun.
Other than that, we've got a new painting of Finn.
Nice. I need to improve my background without a doubt.
Points and haircuts. So obviously today is all about the pubs reopening and hairdressers. If like Harry, you need a haircut. So obviously things have changed a little bit, and it's going to look very different out there. And there's all sorts of one-way systems involved in pubs and whatever. But obviously my my thoughts go to get out to all our colleagues, all the 999 services, because I'm sure you can remember, Harry, how chaotic an ordinary Saturday night could be. But this is a Saturday night when the pubs are open for the first time in months. So to everybody out there, whether you're out drinking or you're out working, stay safe. Let's stay sensible, and then let's not mess this up.
I like the approach of my Chief Constable Sean Sawyer. I rarely have a bad word to say against him, to be honest, because he's saved my neck on many occasions, or encouraged me, shall I say, and not jumped in where many could have. So Sean Sawyer, thank you very much, and Paul Netherton, you did a cracking job. He's done a couple of interviews recently, and he's just saying, look, just people be kind, be patient. We're not, even the locals who don't want the local businesses to open, they have been really patient up to now, keeping their businesses shut. They are struggling. So if we can do a controlled introduction of it, then that's what we can get. However, he said, if anyone messes about, if anyone decides to get a bit drunk and leery and just ignore all these issues, he said, you will find yourself in the back of a police car. So do it. He says, and we will be firm. So can't be fairer than that.
No, absolutely not. So I'm going to use the next news article as a bit of a plug for the campaigns that we're doing. So this week saw 2 police dogs get attacked. They're the ones that I can find anyway. One was PD Nala in Northant. One was my dog's own brother, Hector, in BCH, being attacked. Both incredible jobs that they were involved in, and of course, the dogs achieved what they wanted to achieve. And these people were taken into custody. But my hope is, of course, that Finn's Law will be used for both those assaults on those service animals. And, of course, a shameless plug for Finn's Law Part 2, which is to increase the sentencing for all animal welfare, which includes Finn's Law, and it includes your pets, to increase that sentencing from 6 months to 5 years. Don't forget to write to your MP and ask them for that increased sentencing, which I think, unless someone corrects me, is on the 11th of September, which has been delayed so many times. So get hold of your MP and tell them.
And well done, Dave, for getting it into Scotland a couple of weeks ago, I believe, didn't you?
Yeah, Finslow, Scotland, and Finslow Part 2, incredible. Yeah. They did it all in one go, which was absolutely amazing. Great. Retirement of a police horse, Rio, who's headed off to your neck of the woods in retirement. It's headed off. So a Met police horse called Rio headed off to the Devon Horse and Pony Sanctuary. So well done, Rio. Thank you for your service. And I've got to say this because it made me chuckle. Happy Independence Day to all our American friends and family and followers. Or, as I saw on social media, Happy Treason Day.
Oh, really? What's that about?
Well, treason, independence from us, wasn't it? So,
yeah. We celebrate. Yeah, you beat us.
Yeah.
I was over there. I was over in Florida when they did that. Oh my goodness, the Americans do it well, don't they? I mean, all the. I mean, I was in Florida, which in those place where all the little things run around, trolleys run around on tracks and stuff. I don't really enjoy it too much, to be honest. But we're there, and it was this big open thing, and they're all ages, and they all stood up and they did their thing, and from the oldest pensioner, ex-forces, to someone who'd obviously been in a year, they were all applauded and whooped and things like that. Yeah. And it's good. We're rubbish at that, aren't we? We are really.
Well, I think we're told to be embarrassed by it, but I don't think we should be very proud.
Exactly that, mate. I am going to start hinting about who's going to come in next.
I know. I've put a message on here. Have you seen it?
No.
On the green room. Let me. He's obviously fed up with all the nuts.
Well, he is. He's put a message. Right, ban him already.
He's drunk all the beer, and he's put on here. Let me out. Let me out.
No, he's trash. We had to take the tables after Mandy Hickson wrecked the joint after she got drunk in our green room last week. We've had to the budget and all that. We've had to replace it. But here we go. I'm going to introduce him first of all with this is who we've got. We've got Scottie Bateman, and his Twitter handle is Scottie Bateman at Scottie Bateman. He's a fine chap, and I'm going to bring him on because he's such an interesting guy. First of all, he's been RAF pilot for a Hercules C-130. Those are those huge, great things that just land on beaches, and they are just monsters. He's been he is a jumbo jet pilot for BA, Airbus, the A350. Again, the biggest thing you can get, I'm sure, isn't it, Dave?
Airbus-wise.
Yeah, he
is the biggest, but yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'll get him off. Get someone on who flies one of them. Then that's what I say. And then you can hear this. And then what I think one of the most amazing things he's done is and we're going to ask him about it. His father suffered a heart attack, and he then invented first responders, where it's basic civilians. They go out and they are first to the scene before many a 999 service can get there. And he got an MBE for that. So good on him for that. He's been the chief of Wiltshire Specials as well. I need to ask him about that. And he owns his own consultation firm specializing in aviation risk management. He's got 9 Line Media, and he's also, an interesting little subnote. He's been in Air Force One. So let's ask him a few things, shall we? Let's introduce Scottie Bateman. How are you?
Harry, good afternoon. I'm really good. I've just had my haircut, so the barbers are open. And I've just noticed that the green room has this amazing light that makes me look very godly, which is awesome. Awesome. How are you both? It's
very good to see you both. How are you?
Really good to see you, mate. Really good to see you. It's just an interesting. I'm just fascinated every time I talk to you, because then you just drop in a little nugget. There are certain things that but there's certain things I know about you that we're not able to talk about today and things. So we'll move on, but that's just for a little bit of suspense. But there's a hell of a lot we can talk to you about. My first is your distrust of helicopters. So basically, what I wanted to do was just introduce you to this photograph here. This is me and Ollie Taylor, who is a police sergeant in Devon and Cornwall. This is not. You don't like this. Is a EH 101 Merlin. When I was in the Navy, I was a Navy pilot there. If you know, and this might be long nose. You know, not quite. Oh, I can't actually move it. And then I tell you what, I'm just gonna get rid of that one a minute, because even this doesn't like me doing it. So forget that. I'm gonna just chuck in a couple of photographs. Just right. What don't you trust or don't you like about helicopters, Scotty? Tell me about it.
They shouldn't work. They shouldn't fly. If you look at the physics is all wrong. It's just luck that they actually fly. And Harry, I'm surprised you actually even got one. You probably put yourself at more risk getting inside that freaking helicopter than you did in 30 years of policing in Devon and Cornwall. Can I say, I've got to interrupt here, because a week after we were in this helicopter, there was an exchange with an American pilot, RAF Coldrose. RAF Coldrose. I will be shot for that. It is RNLS Coldrose. It's the Royal Navy. And this was me in the back doing a bit of nav while Ollie was in the front piloting it. But a week after, when they take off, they go up, they power up to about 15 meters or so, I believe, just to check everything's working. And to make sure it's not going to fall out of the sky.
Yes, but it did. It did fall out of the sky. And because they're made of paper, they absolutely disintegrated this thing. And unfortunately, the American pilot was quite badly injured with his legs and things. But I mean, this is flying around South Cornwall. That's me. Ollie's just gone back to get the sandwiches. And and I actually landed this thing. They literally just covered as I'm landing, and then took off. So that is. Oh, and then I joined the RAF, and I did a little spinning around and got landed on a thing. And so I have survived. And that's the one I was in the back of. There'll be more about you in a minute, Scotty. But I'm just winding you up about helicopters.
You don't need Harry. You don't need to wind me up. The fact that you've just answered your own question is that a couple of days after you were in it, it crashed. Is exactly my point.
You do have a point.
They are great utility things, but actually, at some point, you're going to become a cropper. The physics, you cannot beat the physics. The physics will get you.
It's true. Okay. Mate, tell us, how did it all start? How did it all start for you to get into the aviation world? Because you weren't originally flying things, were you? You were loading them and things, weren't you?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was in the Air Cadets. I loved the Air Cadets. Loved flying, loved airplanes, and I thought that's the job for me. But actually, all my Air Cadet instructors were actually police officers. And you'll find that a lot of Air Cadet instructors, well, I'm being general here, actually police officers love doing it. It's a great way of engaging with youth, that kind of thing. Yeah. So they all convinced me to not just try the RAF, but to go for the police service as well. So I actually applied when I left school for both. Got accepted to Grampian Police as a police officer. Started there, and then actually I got accepted into the Air Force as an air loadmaster, and I thought, that's for me. I'm going to do that. So I joined as non-commissioned aircrew, sergeant aircrew.
Was that Air Cadets? Was it
good?
Was that
No, that's actually That's I know I look young there, Harry, but no, that's actually me on the All Arms Commando Survival course.
As you do,
which was horrendous. So that was the going left to right. The guy there's a flight engineer, a pilot. I was the air load master, and the other guy was another flight engineer. So we went as a crew on the All Arms Commando Survival course for that. That's why we look so crap. Joined as an air load master. Got onto Hercules just before the first Gulf War. Joined 47 Squadron RAF Lynham, and then flew the Hercules as an air load master for about 7 years, and then being a good boy with clean background, I ended up applying for pilot, and they said, "Yeah, come and give it a go." So in 1997, I went through pilot training, and almost 2.5 years to the day, I returned back to 47 Squadron as a pilot.
Wow! I mean, and that's quite an unusual route, isn't it?
It is actually. It's not as unusual as you'd think. When I did it, the Air Force were quite short of pilots, so they were taking a number of people through that route. And there are about, I think, a dozen or so, maybe 20 of us who went from non-commissioned aircrew, from either being flight engineers or air load masters through to being pilots. In fact, I was on a BA trip. Sorry, Dave, go on.
No, I was just going to say, anyone who doesn't know what an air load master is, I actually went to the RAF recruitment myself, and they tried to get me to sign up as to go down the air load master route, because they said that you're actually the boss of the aeroplane. No, you tell everyone else what to do. You are in charge of that aircraft. So if anybody doesn't know what an air load master is, what do you do?
Well, in essence, anything that comes on it, off it, gets cooked on it, make the tea. You are the guy who, other than flying it, you are the guy who deals with everything else. All the tactical stuff coming out the back, passengers, crew, freight, everything from, I've carried deck chairs into Afghanistan and cabbages into Afghanistan, and that's just as important as carrying bombs sometimes.
Were you on a helicopter?
No, that's actually Afghanistan. So
I thought it might be.
That's very close to a place called Mazar-e-Sharif, which was a very famous battle there during the conflict. And that's us coming into the airport. And I think I was flying there, and I think actually the loadmaster took this picture out of the window. And you can probably kind of see how low we are by the people that are round the trees there. Yeah. So we are pretty low there.
So we're getting a couple of questions coming in. One I'll come back to in a minute. When I was growing up, I was brought up in southeast London, but my grandparents had a house in Oxfordshire, a beautiful house, and it was near Weston on the Green. Does Weston on the Green mean anything to you?
Yeah.
So
it's the whole. So the parachute drop zone for the #1 parachute training school, which is based in Bryce Norton, always has been. And what we do is we'd go across there with our Hercs, we'd fill ourselves full of paratroopers and go around the Pear Tree roundabout, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
So the Pear Tree roundabout on the M40, we'd go back and forth, dropping probably somewhere in the region of 10 to 12 paratroopers at a time. Airplane could carry up to 8 to 8. So you're going to be going round and round for quite a bit, getting rid of those. Back to Bryce, they'd all be bus backed. We'd fly back, have a cup of tea. By the time they got back, we'd fill them up and off we go again. And that's how the parachute regiment do their training.
Yeah, it was an amazing part of my childhood. I used to love it. And literally their house was right on the flight path, just before you go across the dual carriageway to get to now over the M40. They lived in Wendlebury. And there'd be anything from 20,000 foot to 200 foot. And if the wind was in the right direction, you could hear the crazy loons shouting, yee, as they were jumping out the back.
Yeah, I mean, 800 feet is about the right height for the military parachute in training. But some of those military parachutes, they've got what's called a sprung periphery. So they crack open when they come out. And they can go down for ops down to about 200 feet. So, yeah, they literally jump out, the chute would open, they'd hit the ground. It's more like a brake chute rather than a parachute. So it's pretty cool.
So you used to wake us up at night as well coming through, which again was brilliant. The rumble of a Hercules is so unmistakable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. What's happening here then? Because this is in Afghanistan, is it? It looks like, or is that Wales?
Yes. I wish it was Wales. Yeah. You don't wear that kit in Wales. So this is Kabul Airport, actually, Harry. Back in probably 2004, 2005, something like that. That's me sitting down after a long day. We're actually on the apron at the airfield there, and this is the team. So this is the flying team. The guy to the right of me. Who's facing is the navigator, and the rest are flight engineers, security people. You can tell the security people, they're the ones who are taking it all very seriously with all the kit. And then the other guys are engineers, and basically I'm listening to them about how the trip went, and we're having a debrief because we have something called and I know you're very keen on it, Harry, called the just culture, where after each thing we have a no holds barred open up, and people are human. We all make mistakes, and if we'd made a mistake in the sortie, we air it, we get it out in a just culture, as we call it, and there's no blame apportioned. We try to learn from that and not do it again next time.
Do you know what? There was Mandy Hickson talks about that in her book as well, even though it's like an hour and a half flight, it's sort of 6 hours of preparing, planning, organize, and then down to the debrief and leaving is sort of 6 hours in order to do it. And that's what differs, I think, in the police at the moment. I mean, she mentioned somewhere in there where she, and I realised with the armed response side of things that things can go wrong if you're out of routine. So if you're getting weapons out the armory, I've done it 1,000 times before. But if you're actually then in the field, so to speak, and things are different, and you've just had quite an intense job, you've got to be so careful how you load the weapons back into the safe, the ones that you put there and things. Because if you're not careful, you'll instead of taking the mag out and racking it empty, you will just rack it and then fire it, and of course it will go bang because you've still got the mag in there. So you just have to actually be so careful. And luckily, in 30 years, I managed to not do that, but I nearly did twice. I had to go, whoa, you know.
And was that after a particularly tough shift when you're tired and you've been pinging around all over?
Every time it was, and I was doing it in the back seat. You have a Glock on your side all the time, but when you're taking a G38, you take the mag off and you rack it 3 times because only one should come out. But if 2 or 3 come out, that's when I went, whoa, okay, just stop there. That shouldn't happen. But these debriefs that you do in the RAF, because I think Mandy was saying at one point they took off because the circumstances different. They took off. They then did their sortie, came back, and the pin for the ejector seat was still in there. I think she was talking about, and that. But it just showed because for the next students going in, because of there was a change of routine, that could happen again. Whereas if you thought there's going to be an IOPC investigation because for neglect of duty, for whatever, then, and I'm sure there's a limit in the RAF, but you openly talk about it, so to prevent these things from future, because otherwise aircraft fall out of the planes or pilots aren't able to eject.
Yeah, and Harry, it goes beyond that. I mean, British Airways has an amazing just culture as well as the RAF, and it's all around actually not just accepting that humans make mistakes. And you know, British Airways, you know, has a matrix. And after everything, we decide basically, was it a deliberate mistake? Because people don't go out in the morning to deliberately discharge a weapon, you know, at the thing. Nobody does that. So the organisation decides, you know, okay, was it a deliberate act? Did that individual do that deliberately? And if they didn't, okay, what's the benefit of disciplining that individual? Zero, in fact. It's absolutely zero. So what we do is we turn that into a learning opportunity for everyone. And the individual gets the opportunity to be open about that, completely honest. And then what you actually find is that reporting of near misses goes up. Because people then find actually we're reporting more because we know we're not going to end up in that IOPC or in front of professional standards, or I'm going to lose my job for making what is an honest mistake. So then you then begin to see patterns of things happening. Perhaps, you know, Harry, somebody at 2 o'clock the day before had done exactly the same as you. So then you identify, why did that happen? So this allows you to then build up opportunity to say, is the system wrong? Are we using it wrong? Do we need a checklist? Do we need, and this is how aviation has learned and developed over the years, is now that we have this open culture of reporting. And to be fair, I think we over-report a lot of stuff in aviation. And I think we're quite hard on ourselves. But what that means is we've ended up with a safety culture and actually just a general working culture that's far more open. So people will come up to you and say, I've done this, I'm really sorry. And then actually they've pulled a fire extinguisher off the wall, and rather than put it back on the wall and just say nothing, we now say, okay, that's happened. We go and take the fire extinguisher, we get a new one, you know, no harm, no foul. But then what we'll do is we'll report that, and actually they'll look into it and they'll say, oh, bugger, actually the fire extinguisher clip is broken on all the fire extinguishers. So then you close that off and prevent that ever happening again. And to have the confidence to own up to something, a genuine mistake, knowing that there's not going to be any jeopardy to that, actually changes the culture overnight. And I mean, literally overnight.
And I know the IOPC, that since February, they've got to get a few things in order. And time will tell whether the Independent Office of Police Complaints will do this, because there's an immediate thing of punishment, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of it, I wonder how with cameras, people phone and all that, they've got to be on the ball 30 years, 40 years, if it's still continue as it is. and get through that without the end of their service, just by being human, because it's all human. And when you think you're actually flying these things, aren't you, Scotty? Is that the 350? Yeah. Excuse my ignorance. Is that the?
It is. So that's the Airbus A350, the newest airplane. It's the 1000 version, so it's a little bit longer. That's, you know, probably you wouldn't get much change out of £500 million for that. Yeah, so it's quite a lot of responsibility driving that round.
So isn't that marvelous that they actually can treat you as a human being and go, look, you're going to make mistakes, but it's just reading Mandy's book again is how phenomenal the amount of training it is. And I remember with the armed response cars driving around, everyone thinks, "Wow, that's so cool! You can just drive around and you can put your blue lights on and speed around." And same with you, Dave. With all those that training is incessant, non-stop, repeated.
Yeah, I said that, Harry, and I hope I'm not going off point here, but you know, it used to be accepted that, and there have been a few court cases over the last few years where you would use the quietish times or the routes that you know that you're going to take to practice how you're going to deal with stuff. But now you're monitored in every single thing that you do, and you know, and if you do practice that route or that roundabout and you're not on a job, someone will be ringing you up to say, well, hang on a sec, you were speeding. And I know there was a case recently where the guy got off because he said, well, he was practicing his skill. But it's
I mean, there are, go on, Scotty.
No, I was just going to say, you know, any profession that has risk involved in it, you have to practice. You know, Harry, you will have been required to shoot very often, I would imagine, because of that, and you will have practiced your drills, your house drills, your whatever, or your door drills.
Yeah, it's
and incessant. And driving is no different. And actually, you know, I'm a great believer that actually what you've just said, you have to practice, because if you don't practice, the day that you come across that incident, you don't know how you're going to react. And you know, we do it in the sim all the time, and we do things that, you know, we would never see in the airplane, hopefully for real, but if we do, we know how to deal with it. It's done in a calm manner, and actually repetition, so you get that muscle memory. In fact, here we are at flying the A350, and this is the simulator. You can see how real it is.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, so we practice these things over and over again, so we get that muscle memory. And you know, you've got things, we've got ways of making decisions. You've got the NDM. I think the NDM is, you know, something from the 1950s and quite unwieldy. So you know, we have a method which is easy. Everybody can remember it off the top of their head and use it.
20.
Oh, this is not pretty.
I just want to see if you crash.
I do.
This is you flying this simulator.
Oh, yeah, this is me. Yeah. So
that's
quite heavy.
Gone. That is.
Oh, gee whiz, that one would be a bone rattler. But anyone you can walk away from is a good one. Yeah. The fact is, it's all about that muscle memory, and it's all about repetitive, you know, repeating stuff. And I wholeheartedly think you have to practice, because if you don't practice, it's a nightmare.
And to be honest, we used to have intel come in that there's cars coming down with drugs, that side of things. Dave has this all the time. And I would get the team, so we'll do a preemptive box, which is where police vehicles travel literally an inch away from each other. You practice it originally on runways, and at 85 mile an hour, 90 will even be touching each other's little bumper. Just think. And the principle is, the closer you get, if you are doing this technique to then surround the offending vehicle without them knowing you're there, they just see a lead vehicle with no lights and think it's just going by. And if it's plain, then even better. Then they just get surrounded. And I must have done 30 of these, and without any damage or injury. I've had a cracked number plate once. That's when it stopped, and eventually stopped and then rolled into the car in front. So I would say, right, okay, guys, as we're going up there, this would usually be nights, and we would practice all the way up the motorway. So the rear one's looking through the back windscreen of the middle car, who's looking through the back windscreen of the front car, and just getting that familiarity again, getting it in there, because you only do preemptive box training once a year, and sometimes only once every 3 years, because you're doing so many legit jobs. But it is, can you imagine just being thrown into that and say, right, come on, then let's do that? And
Well,
farms training the same, searches and stuff. It's exactly the same. It's four days every 6 weeks.
Talking about doing it at night as well, Harry. If you're having to do this, and we talk about this in aviation a lot, is about your circadian rhythms. And shift workers, you'll know, long haul airline pilots, we know about our circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
And when you're going to have a lull, and there's a thing called the window of circadian low, and that's for us normally it's about 2-3 in the morning. That's when we get our deepest sleep. If you're trying to make critical decisions, whether it be firearms or boxing that car at 2 and 3 in the morning, you're not going to be at your best. And and we've got methodology. In fact, in Wiltshire Police, you mentioned that earlier, that I've been involved in Wiltshire Police in the past. They talked about bringing in controlled rest for firearms officers. So actually, 45-minute designated rest period, which actually allows them to that 45 minutes is enough to take you across that.
Sometimes
and the performance, and the performance improvement that you get from having that uninterrupted power nap is actually phenomenal. I mean, and it's scientifically proven. And I think okay, the rate of jobs in some areas wouldn't allow you to do that, but when you're dealing about a critical event like a firearms job, what would you much rather have? People on the top of the game, or people who are hitting the window of the circadian low?
We had an argument really with the bosses, and they did listen to the end, but all the restrooms were being repaired, and they gave us these really hard plastic chairs that you could only sit really upright in, and there was no way you could relax because otherwise you'd be out on patrol, sort of thing. There was only one boss who was causing a problem. And they had all the backs of the chairs were broken. They were just snapped because everyone was leaning back. We've got 20 kilos on you. And then, of course, you're leaning the seat back, just trying to get a little bit. I do remember I had real criticism. I can't remember if it was from CPS or Criminal Justice Unit or something, real criticism of something in my file that I'd done. And I wrote a reply back saying, at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're lucky I can spell my name. And I never got an answer back. Because you just forget something sometimes, an obvious thing to anyone else. But
I mean, it's no different to me trying to land that A350 or the jumbo jet that you saw earlier. They want me to be at my peak. There are 330 people sitting behind me who want to go home. You then are, the same situation are going to drive a car down a motorway, probably at 120, 130 miles an hour.
140.
Okay,
sometimes
a bit faster. Oh, geez whiz. Yeah, and then actually that's faster than my airplane lands. Just to let you know.
I know.
No, it is actually.
Both of us. Is it?
Yeah. So you're going at that kind of speed, and you're going to then jump out and have to make critical decisions, often in an instant, using an archaic decision-making tool that nobody really uses. So you've got to be at the top of your game. Why don't you look at stuff like this? I just can't understand the rationale why they wouldn't do it. Rather than why there's barriers to it. But I'm not in policing.
That's the big argument with College of Policing, which the idea of College of Policing is very good because it nationalises everything. It means that Dave's Dogs Instructor courses is the same as Devon and Cornwall, so to speak. It's the same as Manchester. It's our firearm. So I could join a team in Manchester and they would know what I'm doing and I'd know what they're doing. So it's really good that way. But and they're obviously and I haven't worked with them, so I don't. There's clearly some very good people in there, but this is where that sort of thing can happen, isn't it? Counter, but we are 43 different forces still. That's the problem.
Well, there you go. Anybody from the College of Policing who's listening, Scottie, can't get a arrow the right way. Scottie's your man. You need to talk to him. You need to all the all the research, all the stuff that he's got.
But can we just add this? Because there's a few photographs here that you might recognise this person here as well on the far right of the screen. That's our John Nicol. And so tell us, because this is the bit I'm really impressed. That's a very, not that you're not handsome now, but it's quite a handsome chap there, second from the left there with you, Scottie. What's going on here, mate?
Just to say that actually that's black and white, so it doesn't show my big fat belly, and then the coat is 5 times too large. So, what this was actually, and I watched. You had John on a couple of weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
I watched it. It was really good, actually. So
when he nearly set himself alight, you mean that one?
Yeah, with the barbecue. I thought, oh my god, it's going to be a nightmare. But never mind. Yeah, health and safety never approved that. This was all about. So my dad, you kind of alluded to it, Harry, when you set this up earlier. My dad died of a heart attack in a rural area in Scotland. It took about 35 minutes to get the ambulance to him. He was never going to have it, never going to survive from that. I felt aggrieved, angry, a whole range of emotions. I was in the Air Force at the time, actually just about to do my officer training. And I caught chicken pox, which as an adult is not a nice thing to have. So I just graduated from the college at Cranwell. I couldn't start my pilot training because I had chicken pox. So I needed to have 6 months doing something else. And I saw an opportunity here to devise something which turned into what is now the National First Responder schemes, where in this case, they were using military people to begin with, and using them in marked cars with blue flashing lights, which they still do in some areas. In fact, I think you've got them in Cambridgeshire. And you've certainly got them in Devon and Cornwall. So volunteers from the military who go out, and then this grew into public place defibrillation, and then into the community first responders. So I got sent to the NHS for 6 months, would you believe? And I devised this in 6 months. So this whole scheme, and we launched it back in 1997 in Lincolnshire, which at the time, because of the geography of Lincolnshire, being predominantly rural and the infrastructure in terms of roads isn't great. So to get anywhere there is a challenge. We set it up there, and it worked perfectly. And then ever since then, it's just grown and grown and grown. So there are literally tens of thousands of these community first responders now all over the world, all over the UK. And actually, I'm very proud to put a defib in the village where my dad died. Which was fantastic. One of the great things about the scheme. And a couple of years ago, we did an amazing award ceremony in the town hall in City Hall in London, where Dame Helen Mirren came along and presented a few prizes on behalf of the charity at the time. And what actually we found out was from the London Ambulance Service, the person who had the most on the street saves, i.e. resuscitated people who were having cardiac arrests, was actually for the first time not a medical professional. It was the station manager at London Bridge Tube Station, a guy called Eddie, and he had resuscitated more people successfully than any other professional in London that year. And it just goes to show how much change a simple idea with volunteers can make. You know, that individual tube station manager giving his time to train. And out of this has come some amazing stuff, which I'm not involved in, but, like the Good Sam app came out of this, the scheme, and lots of other things that are going on. So if you haven't got the Good Sam app and you are trained to use an AED, get the Good Sam app, register for that, and actually it'll alert you to if there's a 999 call near you and where the nearest defibrillator is. So it'll also take you to the defib, then take you to where.
And that's called the SAM app.
Good Sam app, as in Good Samaritan.
Good. Okay,
so
good.
It's an amazing app. Works all over the UK.
Right, I'll be signing up.
Saves lives every day. That app. So
What an absolutely incredible thing for you to. As someone has said, you turned tragedy into something for everyone. So,
but it would be nice if he'd got an MBE for that, wouldn't it?
Well done.
We did get an MBE for it.
Yeah. It's pretty bizarre because it's pretty bizarre. It was one of the oddest things ever. So very fortunate to be awarded that by the Queen. And I was walking up there and I was standing next to her because it's done by military people. And, so all the military people are standing up, and it was Scottie Bateman for services to the National Health Service. So this pilot walked up and took his MBE for services to the National Health Service. People look at it and go, what's a pilot getting something for the National Health Service for?
Where do you land when you where do you land when you actually stop at people's houses?
Yeah, I genuinely, it's a great feeling, and I see there's some messages there who are for people who are first responders. It is a great feeling, as you know, as a police officer or any first responder, to go into a person's house and be able to walk away from that house with them in a much better state than when you arrived. There is no greater reward than that.
I had a guy fall off of his Vespa in front of me and Gemma when I mean, what a great place for him to fall off his Vespa. But he hadn't fallen off because he'd had an accident. He fell off because he was having a heart attack. Right in front of Gemma and I when we were going out one day, and I took one look at him and I said, and from my training, not from experience, because I hadn't done CPR up until that point, and just immediately I took his helmet off, which obviously they tell you shouldn't do, but you could see his face was bulging and his tongue was coming out of his mouth. I was like, right, he's having a heart attack, and we got to work with him within a few seconds of him having a heart attack, and at the last I heard, he was still alive. Although he did every time I met him a couple of times, and every time I saw him, he used to have a go at me, nicely, of course, about the 7 cracked ribs that I gave him. Because out of everything that happened that day, it's the cracked ribs were the only thing that gave him any chip.
At least you were doing it properly. Harry, can you bring that photo back up? Because I want to tell you a little story about that photo with John.
I will get rid of the one I prepared. Don't worry about it.
No, all right, sorry.
It's fine.
John, I think, very briefly talked about this when he was on about he'd driven around. We went to Bristol. This was a TV bit that we did around Volunteers Week. And we took John out in the car for a couple of nights, Friday and a Saturday night, a payday weekend in Bristol. And we went around Bristol doing lots of things. And he said he'd never been so petrified as going around the M32 M4 in a car with Steve, who he's standing next to there. I think that they were doing a little bit less than you were talking about, Harry, but they were shifting. And then we went to this house, this gentleman's house, and the gentleman had some real issues, and his house was in a bit of a state, sadly. And John, when we were walking out of the house, said, last time he saw something like that, he was staying at Saddam Hussein's pleasure.
Wow.
But it was
that's typical John comment.
Yeah,
right.
But it brought a little bit of a humour to what was quite actually a sad situation. And I know you often talk about the black humour that keeps you going, and that made us all laugh. We picked ourselves up and off we went to the next job. It was an amazing opportunity to highlight some really key work that the volunteers used to do in Bristol.
I'm struggling to pack everything in here, but this is another. Is this a fancy dress party you went to, or what? I mean, you seem to be again. I know he's chief constable here. Now tell us about this, Scotty.
I've got a uniform fetish. That's all you need to know.
Haven't we all? That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So
water.
Obviously, when I left school, I told you earlier, I joined the police as well as joining here. So I did a lot of work, revamping volunteering really for the ambulance service, and introducing volunteers into places that the ambulance service had never used them before. I mean, prior to first responding, the ambulance service never used them. The special constabulary has been around 185, almost 190 years
really?
now.
So I was one for 3 years. 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah. So they never had that kind of voluntary process to get in to the ambulance service. So I was coming to the end of my time in the ambulance service. After the Olympic Games, I thought I need a new challenge. I met an amazing chief constable, a guy called Mike Veal, who was chief constable of Wiltshire. And at the time, he was looking to revamp his special constabulary because it was kind of waning. And I went in and we shook it up a little bit. And did a lot of changes, made a lot of changes to the special constabulary. I was and I know you were not going to like this, but I was the first direct entry special constabulary superintendent.
But you actually were quite useful. You actually improved their numbers massively, didn't you?
Yeah, so it went from about 60 odd up to hundreds and hundreds. I mean, they had hundreds and hundreds because we revamped the training to get people onto the front line, get them in early, get them to the front line, and they've retained a lot of those people. They've made some huge changes, sweeping changes in the last couple of weeks, I think, that will put people off again. But it was great. I mean, I haven't been there for a couple of years. It's run by a consultant now, an amazing lady called Rachel Lowton, who's an A&E consultant in Salisbury, and she runs it now. But it's a great. I think that the special constabulary is a great thing, but policing doesn't really recognise that being a volunteer doesn't really mean you're an amateur.
No,
and that's one of the big things. So actually, you have a lot of skills to offer. Mike Veal actually got it, and what we did was we used my skills to. We had the first UAV unit. Devon Cornwall likes to claim they did, but actually it was Wiltshire. So, Wiltshire Police had a UAV unit that was manned by volunteers, which was available 24/7, and that's just grown and grown and grown. And they started a UAV academy in association with Essex Police as well, which was all driven by volunteers. It was an amazing, amazing thing, and you know how UAVs have grown in policing.
I mean, they are phenomenal. I think they are brilliant. I find my personal thing. I think they're really good for pre-planned jobs in particular, whereas helicopters are excellent for spontaneous. So there's definitely a place for both of them, without a shadow of a doubt. But they're good. Can I just, Dave? Sorry, Dave? Can I just put this one in? Is that possible, or is?
Yeah, I was just going to break for that. Hang on a second. I'm just getting him to come and do his thing. Sorry, Scotty. I think you can understand that we just need to for this. So hang on. So this is a message for Edna, who's sadly receiving end of life care, who's a big fan of Finn. So we're just going to get Finn to say hello to Edna. Finn's the star of the show, anyway. Look at him. He's like, "What? Really, Finn?" He's like, "Whatever." Edna, he's getting ready. Ready?
Yay! Oh, that's brilliant. Well done, Dave.
Sorry about that.
Well done, Dave.
I hope that made you smile, and thank you for giving us a shout, Judy, for that.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you very much. And I think there was, but okay, if there, because it's just packing it all in, and then
an 8-hour interview.
Go on.
I know, and then I come across this one. Right, I come across this one, right? So this is because I got this from you. So this one here, hang on a minute. This is worth waiting for, because I want you to explain why your lounge looks remarkably like another one that we know so well.
Oh my goodness. I've got the same haircut as well. Oh my god. That is what it looks like.
It is. You just happen to be there.
Yeah.
Were you burgling it, or you can't really say too much at the time? Are you running the presidency next year?
I tell you what, if I could, I would probably get in.
But or maybe you wouldn't. You're far too qualified.
I have to say I've been very privileged over the last 2 years to be involved in a project which has been sanctioned by the president himself. Thank you very much. And that it involved a visit to the White House and a visit to a few other assets which are owned by the White House and the USAF. And I was very privileged, and I can see Anne, I can see Harry getting ready quickly to putting it up. We were doing a very privileged to go on board Air Force One, which was fantastic on a couple of occasions, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It's a project which I can't talk about much, not because it's secret, but because until it's complete, I can't really say. But people will know more about the project before the end of the year, certainly just after the election. I
was going to say it's all very well, but did you actually go in it? And then there's this. Yeah. He is very much aboard Air Force One.
Yeah, I've got a lot of pictures of me aboard Air Force One doing lots of things, but not all for this audience. But no, it was an amazing opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm one of only a handful of non-US nationals that have ever flown in the airplane, and it was just so cool. You couldn't believe it. I've been on the flight deck with the commander of the Presidential Airlift Group when we were doing some training. And I've been in the secret bits of Air Force One underneath the stairs and underneath where, people think there's just to be very clear, there is not an escape pod down there.
Oh, really?
But that's complete and utter fabrication. I have been from front to back. There is no escape pod. I can tell you that now. I'm maybe giving something away now, but no, there is no escape pod. But it is such an amazing airplane. I mean, it's a 30-year-old airplane now, so that airplane is being replaced shortly.
Really?
It's a bit like, it'll be replaced in the next 3 or 4 years. They've already started building the new one. Hint, hint. That might be what the project's about. And the airplane they've currently got is 30 years old. I mean, they treat it like a classic car. Yeah. It's amazing how they look after it, and it really does come out of that hangar every day, like the day it first came out the hangar back in 1980. I mean, it is.
Then 4 years to build the new one.
Yeah. Wow. And the challenges they're having now to try and keep that airplane in the air, and the work that the engineers and the team at Andrews Air Force Base do is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's an amazing story that somebody might tell in the future.
Well, that would be really useful if someone could do that, but you'd have to get someone pretty experienced in flying. Go on then, Dave.
Coming to an end, but there's loads of questions that have come up that I've got. And
go on, go.
The beach landings. You landed on Staunton Beach, didn't you? That's Finn's favourite beach.
Staunton Sands. Staunton Sands in Devon. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so Harry might be able to bring up some pictures of landing on the beach.
Yes, I will.
There's a fantastic hotel on a cliff at the end of the beach there, as I'm sure you know. And actually, the hotel has an amazing picture if you've been there, of us landing on the beach in the reception of the hotel. And we used to come over the top of the hotel and land long on the beach, or come from the other way and land on the beach facing towards the hotel. And then it would be amazing to land on a beach where people at the other end of the beach are actually surfing, walking their dogs, having a nice day out in Devon, and this turns up and lands on the beach.
Yeah.
It's obviously, as I'm sure you know, there is a portion of that beach which is actually owned by the military, and they allow people to come on during the normal course of the day. But when we're doing that sort of stuff, they close that part of the beach off. But it does look quite odd when you see this Hercules lining up to land on the beach that you're on. You can see people having that moment, thinking, "What we're going to do?"
It's just great. You couldn't do it on Bournemouth, could you?
Oh no! Did you ever do the Mach 1 loop in the Herc?
Yes. So the Mach loop and McCuntleth loop up in Wales, we used to do it lots. Yeah.
I've seen some amazing footage of any aircraft doing the Mach 1 loop, but when you see the Herc doing it as well, you're like, oh my god, that is so.
It was a great airplane to fly around at low level. I mean, it was really responsive. Another great beach shot. It was really responsive to fly around at low level, and an amazingly big airplane. I mean, it looks massive. At 250 feet, when you're flying it around, you used to get a lot of complaints because people would normally see a tornado flying across at 250 feet and think, well, that's quite high. And then you'd see the same Hercules flying over at 250 feet, and you go, oh my god, it must be flying at 50 feet above my house.
I've got to put this in. I want to just play this and see what this is about.
So
I'll take the sound off it, amazing, I think,
Harry.
so you can talk.
Yeah, because it's quite... so this is amazing. So you mentioned I've got a media company. I do lots of TV and stuff. And that was an opportunity. We got to go just prior to D-Day 75.
Wow.
I'm actually taking a video from an airplane called That's All Brother, which led the original D-Day raids back on D-Day. And we're in that flying information, and actually what you can't see is that the other side of this airplane is another 4 of these DC-3s, and we're flying over Wisconsin there. It was an amazing day out, a huge privilege to be able to fly on that airplane. Wow. And we did some interviews with the crew and stuff, which were shown on D-Day 75. An amazing day out. It's one of those things where you have to pinch yourself and think, I am sitting in history. I'm actually sitting in history.
That sounds like your life, though, Scotty. I bet there's been loads of times in your life where you've pinched yourself and think, A, I'm getting paid for this. B, I can't believe I'm here. But C, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm working with these people. You said, when are you going to write a book? I mean, look.
Oh, yeah. So this was kind of what got me into Twitter and, these kind of images. So what happened was, 9/11 came along, the door to the flight deck got closed, and really nobody really knows what goes on behind there now. So we can't bring even our families into the flight deck anymore. And these images, I mean, that's the Northern Lights. This was from a 747 when I flew the 747. And to be able to see this, this is such a stunning image to be able to see. And okay, it's a rubbish photo, but you get the idea. I love to share these images, and okay, I haven't been able to do it recently because we haven't been flying as much. But this is why Twitter is a great medium, and I've met some amazing people all over the globe who have like-minded. Everyone from police officers to, people who fly airplanes and build airplanes. It's been amazing, actually.
For anybody who's not following Scotty on Twitter, I'm sure Harry will flash it up. His account is fantastic. It's how I first met Scotty, and then I found out that John met him, that John knows him, and actually we've known each other for quite a long time, but we've never had a proper chat. We need you're added to the list of people we need to go to the pub with and have a beer. It's been.
I know we've had a bit of a playing theme here, but it's because mainly pilots have to. And navigators, such as John, have got such a story to tell, the human story to tell as well, with all the interests and experiences they've had. So it's just not about flying planes, because otherwise everyone would be doing it. It's a phenomenal story to tell. And so thank you, Scotty. That hour is gone. We are over it.
Wow.
And that is it. So thank you so much for turning up. It's been absolutely brilliant to speak to you. Dave, one last word, mate.
You on again? Because you've got so much to tell, and we're definitely going to go out for that drink and all have.
We have so many beers here.
Yeah. But chaps, I've really enjoyed coming on. Thanks very much for having me, and I would love to come back and perhaps talk about something else next time.
Well, we might get. John seems to feature in quite a lot of our return guests. We might have you on with John, and we'll just let you two take the piss out of each other. I think.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't really fly through, did he? He was one of those.
He has to face that. He has to face that.
So actually, he was replaced by Tom. Have you heard of those? Tom replaced the navigator.
We would have to have a referee here. It would be a right bun fight, wouldn't it? So because the other thing, we could have had Mandy and John in as well. Suggested a pilot.
I reckon John hold his own, but they would gang up on him.
Yeah, John can hold his own.
Mandy's book is amazing, by the way. I've read Mandy's book. It is utterly amazing.
Book. I mean, seriously, guys, get that. It's on Amazon, and it's a self-published one.
It's Scotty's book, but it just doesn't sound like you've got time to write one, Scotty.
No.
I'd love to write a book, but I can't write.
Well, neither can I. I did it.
Nor can I. I managed to do it. I managed to get one out. Anyway, guys, it's been emotional. I've got to cut it short, and lovely to see you. Thank you, everyone, for turning up and asking questions. Sorry we couldn't put them all on.
23rd of October is Finsborough Part 2. So write to your MPs. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye, everyone.